go ahead and do. Yay, welcome back for another episode of I'm Not Salesy. I am so excited. This is going to be such a fun conversation. I have Christina Fontana, who is we're going to blow your mind today on sales energetics and wealth energetics because Christina is a former pharmacist, right? Like former practicing pharmacist, that you're
Yep.
still a pharmacist.
Yeah.
But just moving into healing in a different way. Healer, speaker, 5-time author, and rapid transformation business coach. So Christina empowers women to release self-sabotage to elevate into more energy and confidence and self-worth, as well as, sales energetics, wealth energetics, like getting to that frequency where there's really that win-win for everybody. So we're going to get into this conversation. I'm so excited. So Christine, how did you make, or Christina, I'm not getting it. Yeah. How, let me correct myself. What made you say, okay, I, want to go, I was a pharmacist and now I want to go full time as a healer. Like that's a big commitment. I mean, that's leaving like a lot of money on the table, a lot of
Yeah.
perks and benefits, and pharmacists are in hot demand, especially in America. Like we're not getting, like people in America are not getting any healthier.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's exactly my dad's reaction. He's like, so my dad was a pharmacist and he's like, are you stupid? Why are you leaving this secure job?
Yeah.
Not that you said that, but yeah, I think that for me, I've been through a lot of trauma in my past, and I had a rare eating disorder for 7 years that really made me look within myself and start to question some of the things that I was learning in the traditional Western medical model around disease and
Yeah.
why people don't heal. And I think because of that, it was actually a huge gift because it allowed me to open up this new portal of really my purpose.
Yeah.
And I think that that was what was a bigger pull than being stuck behind a counter, just
Yeah.
really, and I'm not, there's medications necessary in many instances, but rather than suppressing symptoms, I really want to help people get to the root cause of
Yeah.
what's making them sick so that they can heal.
Yeah.
So,
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
and a
There's,
lot of that work I wound up translating into business coaching because really I think at the core of what people want in life, like if you strip away business and money and all those things, we want to be loved for who we are. We want to be seen, loved,
yeah.
acknowledged, appreciated, and shine in our gifts. And I think a lot of times when you go through trauma or you've gone through certain experiences and you have these different patterns that can show up, these protective parts of you that hide the true essence of who you are, because
Yeah.
it's not safe to shine because of whatever family dynamics or things that have happened in the past, bullying, abuse, we start
Mhm.
to cover up that true essence. And so
Yeah.
a lot of the work that I do is about, I call it revealing your inner radiance. That was the name of my first book, because that's really what we're all craving, is to be known, to be seen, to use our gifts, and obviously to be paid abundantly for them, right? That's what I believe. Like you talked about the win-win before. That to me is a big
Yeah.
win-win.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think a lot of healers are so tempted to give it, like, there's the pressure to give, you shouldn't be charging for your gifts, or you shouldn't be charging that much for your gifts. And
Right.
there can be a lot of like mind work, and also even like judgment that can come from your family. I mean, from like I've had my business for like 4 years, and excuse me, my I have some family that are in town and they've known this, right? And so they're like, what exactly do you do? I'm like,
Right.
a lot of work that I'm not publicly supported with my family, obviously, because I post on Facebook every day. Like it's not a big, like it's not like you have to work that hard to figure out what I do. It's just like
I was just talking to my husband about this because I was like, I forget, oh, we were at the gym and somehow they had cupcakes there, like random. They had like different like booths or whatever up at our gym. And I was like, see, it's different when like someone's selling cupcakes. Like,
yeah,
hey, I'm a cupcake person. I'm a real estate person. Like people know what that is. When you
yeah,
say I'm a transformational healer, people are like,
yeah,
what?
yeah,
So I guess I'm saying that to resonate with what you're saying,
yeah,
because
sure.
people don't always like people know what football is, or they know, oh, I'm a football player, I'm this, I'm that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
but
funny. Yeah. So before we hopped on though, we were talking about how like this podcast is really, meant for people who are in the business for the long term and who are building, have the dream that could become a reality this year of having a seven-figure business, multi seven-figure business, like impacting lives all over the world, like really um, being the people who are like living those kinds of lives that are like, oh my God, how did you do that? You know what I mean? But to get to
yeah,
that point, there's a lot of like hard work that I feel like the coaching industry especially doesn't do a great job of being transparent about, right? But then also, and because a lot of that, there's the to-do list, but then there's also like the to heal list, and the energetics list that equally as important, but they both take up time, right? And you have like how
right,
much time during the day. So it's I love how like especially for the podcast audience here currently, we're working towards 20K to 50K months, like building multi six-figure businesses with those like higher level conversations around sales, which I feel like the energetics piece really comes in, right? Because it starts to become about like I can teach you strategy and you can chase strategies all day long, but like if the energetics isn't locked up, if you're not truly feeling like you can be yourself and shine and stand out and speak your
yeah.
mind, knowing that some people might not want to hear it or, and be okay with that. It's kind of like dating where you're like, I'm going to tell that guy no, but it doesn't change, like making him feel better about it isn't going to change the fact that he's not the match for me. You know what I mean? So, where do you think what's the biggest thing that my listeners would love to know of from the sales and the wealth energetics that gets in the way of those 20K 50K months actually materializing, and coming to fruition. I mean, and I'm not talking about like it's your offer suite or it's
Right,
specific
right, right,
content
right.
because I teach that too, but from an energetics perspective I'd love
Yeah.
to like get into this conversation.
The thing that's coming through intuitively is control. I think that a lot of
Mhm.
us, and I work with a lot of high achieving people, and I am one too. I think that when we try to solely focus on doing it all ourselves
Mhm.
without that surrender piece, that softness, the femininity, the allowing,
Yeah.
right? Like there are different, obviously, like mindset shifts of like, oh, do I feel safe holding this amount of money? Does, in my body, do I feel worthy to receive this? Like there's so many of those little nuances, but I
Mhm.
think control is almost like a shield.
Yeah.
If you're trying to control everything, then it's almost like you're repelling it and pushing it away. And
Mhm.
so for me, what I always share with my clients and my audience is, and you don't have to believe in God, but God, source, spirit, the universe, whatever you call it, there's this almost co-creative dance that happens. Like I get intuitive downloads that then I execute, or I'll feel like a nudge to message someone, and it's really, I think, in following that, like not relying on our own human consciousness to feel like we have to do it all, because
Mhm.
that's exhausting. And
Yeah.
I think about energy, right? Like say that you have $1,000. Well, we'll use the currency of money, energy, $1,000 in your bank account when you wake up every morning, and you're trying to control everything, and your energy is getting drained because you're people pleasing and you're bartering your services, and that money is just dwindling down.
Mhm.
Then how are you going to hold higher levels of wealth
Yeah.
if there are all these kind of like energy leaks and things not in place in that way? So that's kind of, I know that was kind of a varied answer, but I think it does come down to how we're showing up in the embodiment of what we're holding.
Mhm.
And a
Yeah.
lot of that for me, I mean, I've been an entrepreneur now for 12 years,
Mhm.
and I've learned so much about the nervous system and mindset and so many different things, but really, if you don't feel safe to hold that level of wealth, you're going to in some way repel it. So that's kind of what I'm intuitively feeling to
It's
share.
so true though. And that level of clients too, like if you're
Right,
trying to work with higher level clients and you're like, I feel like there's so many things we can look at as proof that we can work with certain types of clients. And like, it just comes down to you saying, okay, like, where's my genius level? It doesn't matter. Like my genius layer is here. It doesn't matter that I'm a brand new coach. Like I can serve this type of person, this type of person, and this type of like I went through that when I first started because I was like, I went down to like the ground zero again. And I talk about this a lot on the podcast because I feel like it's where a lot of times these money goals aren't reached because you're not giving yourself like the permission to step into serving at a higher level because you're new,
right,
and I
right,
did that where I was like, well, I haven't had an online business yet. So how am I supposed to teach anybody who isn't, until mine is successful? Like I can't do business coaching when I'd been like a top pharmaceutical rep for 2 decades. I've been sales trainers for like every single job I've been at. You know what I mean? Like all the skill sets are there, but we're looking at outside validation instead of your own
right.
internal like skill set and
Right.
genius?
You just nailed it because really it comes down to your belief system. And the only thing that differentiates you versus someone who is creating that level of wealth are your beliefs.
Yeah.
Because the brain is going to look for evidence of what is familiar. So that's why a lot of like I do also some subconscious programming and hypnosis work like that, and even EFT tapping
Yeah.
to help clear some of these blocks that can get in the way. And I think that that's a big part of it is what you're saying. It's like the belief, as corny as it sounds and maybe esoteric or whatever, it really does come down to what is my belief? And I often study really successful people. Like right now I'm watching The Cake Boss. Like I'm super late. It was like years ago, but he said I was watching this episode the other day and he said I knew when I was 5 years old that I wanted to that like the bakery was going to be like really well known. So like these people have that seed of knowingness in their consciousness and it's like that future projection of like this is what I want, this is what I'm envisioning, and then they create it through their energy.
Yeah.
Because somebody who
Yeah.
really believes in themselves, they're gonna invest in themselves. They're gonna stretch themselves. They're gonna like work through all of the hiccups of entrepreneurship to
Mhm.
get to that goal. So I think it really does come down to that, like your belief
Yeah.
in yourself.
Yeah. I think another piece too, also, in addition to that, is like your tendency towards like being the good girl slash people pleasing.
Yes.
And like I was actually in a healing session last week where doing like a kind of like a relationship karma, like a 3 series with like one of my healers. And she was like, and I was telling her about like growing up, my parents were both teachers. My stepdad was like very stern. And I was like, there was a lot of pressure on me because my parents knew I was smart and there was like no way they were going to just let me skate by in life.
Yeah.
And when like I was talking to her last week and she was like, so you always listen to authority figures and she was like, so you were looking like kind of like I was looking at these other mentors who have made like $1 million months or this or that or the other. Like when I started out in this like coaching, I think my previous, especially like like the grooming from corporate where you get to take on additional responsibility or get to higher roles when somebody outside of you says
Yes.
you're ready
Right.
and you're worthy of it, you've done enough to deserve it, or your sales results are good enough that now you can be a trainer, or now we'll hire you and pay you more over here. And so, um, I think when I became a coach here, that was so ingrained in me for like
Yeah.
2 decades that I was like waiting for this external permission from the coaching industry to come in, or like looking at these other coaches who I had been hiring as like my managers per se. Like if I do all the things and I check off the list, then the money's going to come, like, isn't it? Isn't it? And then it didn't because there was like,
Right.
I was the belief system and the people pleasing and the like being the good girl and following authority. Like I was doing all the right things, but I was still telling myself I'm only worthy of beginners. And like, there's no way I can get hired by a millionaire. Like, I don't make $1 million yet. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like, I've made $1 million months in my previous job, my second year as a sales rep. So I've actually had $1 million months already. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
and it doesn't happen by accident. But there's like all this mind fuckery that goes on, I feel like, where, you know, thank God there's people like you to help us like, unpack it. But like that's when my business started really taking off when I was like, okay, wait, no, like this is where I met. These are the people at least who I'm meant to help. I can also help these people over here. And I think, a big part is giving yourself permission to do all of that.
I love that. Yeah, and I think even thinking about like what we have to do to get like a certain award or like
Mhm.
in school or like okay, I studied really hard for this test and now I'm going to get the result, right? We want
Yeah.
that immediate result and like you talked about in the beginning and I just posted about this like entrepreneurship's a long game.
Yeah.
It's not for somebody that's like, "I wanna be get rich quick," like, you have to
Yeah.
work and do the inner work and strategy and hire people and continuously be innovating and moving with the market, like, there's so much that goes into it. Um, so yeah, yeah, I really yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Well, and then you add a couple kids to the mix and you're like, "Wait a minute, okay, what did I decide to do?"
Yeah, I know, I'm there right now, I'm 8 months or 33 weeks pregnant.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, when's your due date then?
So March
March.
9th, so she's a girl, we named her Lindsay Ann,
Oh,
so
cute. I love it.
yep,
Well, congratulations. That'll be
thank you,
fun.
yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, that outside of this then, like when it comes to like fitting all of that into like sales energetics, and we were talking a little bit like coming on about the wealth energetics too. Like, what do
Yep,
you think is the biggest, like, what's the biggest thing that could help somebody at this level to create consistency and create that foundation, and those, um, like I help my clients a lot with like creating monthly recurring revenue,
yep.
having that offer suite that allows for you to like know you're gonna have like you're not starting at 0 every month. You're,
Right, right. That makes
and you're
total sense, yeah.
and no, one thing you had mentioned was like providing the value, like circulating the wealth. And
Yes.
I'd love to get in this conversation because I believe that there's a lot of programs out there that people have created because that's the way other people have created them. And so that's the way you have to create them. You know what I mean? Like these unwritten rules where there's no rules actually, because you are the, queen of your own ship. But when it comes to like having an offer suite that's actually going to serve people at a new innovative level and get amazing results, that's, I feel like, where a lot of that wealth is circulated back in, right? That
Right,
trans
right.
like, wait, what's not transformation, the transaction, that's it, or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I'm getting so many downloads of
Yay.
information as you're talking, so I'm just like that's why I'm I love it. Um, I can just feel your energy is very open, so that makes me it allows me to kinda go a little bit deeper here, so thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah, come
Um,
on, let's do it.
so I feel that what I'm intuiting is about energetic management. So we talked about I always tell people to think of a colander, right? And we kind of alluded to this a little bit before. If you have water and you pour the water into the colander, there's all these leaky energy leaks, right? You're not going to be able to hold higher levels of wealth.
Hmm.
So before you circulate that wealth, you have to make sure that you have a solid foundation, right? So instead of a leaky bucket, you have a solid bucket that can hold the water, aka wealth, money, energy. And so if we're not looking at that foundation, meaning the people pleasing behaviors, the energetic leaks, meaning, the follow up, as an example,
Yeah.
like if there is something that like you're following up with a potential client and you don't close the loop on it, that's an open loop
Hmm.
in your energy. And so those little minute things that we might not even be aware of, like these blind spots,
Yeah.
that's what I think is important to look at so that you can actually then circulate your wealth because wealth to me has so many it's a frequency, it's luxury, it's expansiveness, it's freedom, it's openness. And so when you're open-hearted and you serve from this space of love and self-love, you've poured into yourself, then you can pour into others and you can circulate that wealth through, connecting other people. And maybe it's like, hey, this has nothing to, it's not, I'm not getting a direct benefit from this right here, but
Yeah.
I know energetically, because we live in a quantum universe, that
Hmm.
that's going to come back to me. So
Yeah.
circulating your wealth can mean connecting two people that
Hmm.
you're like, oh yeah, you'd be a great client for that person, or coming onto a podcast and sharing your knowledge. I do a lot of giveaways.
Hmm.
Like I'm doing a launch this week, and I'm, constantly doing giveaways. Like, hey, here, if you engage and you do da 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 da, like I'm gonna reward you.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that win-win situation. Back to what you were saying in the beginning, it's that energetic exchange, because when you circulate higher levels of wealth, connections, knowledge, love,
Hmm.
and you serve from that place, you can't help but be abundant.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think it's all of that.
I think a big part of that too, like the download I'm getting is around to around like client experience as well. Like this is a leak that I see a lot of people. I mean, I just see it from a mile away because like my background being in specialty pharma sales, like I had a buy and bill product that required a lot of me like servicing the accounts and being a consultant and showing them where they were missing out and where patients were falling through the cracks and where they could actually, or they were billing incorrectly for it. And so they were losing money where they didn't need to be losing money per,
Yeah.
patient that came in, especially if you're buying and billing a product, like every little penny, matters. And so when like I see this in client experience where somebody might take somebody's money. That's like the wrong yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like you got the client that pays the coach, and then the coach has the money. They kind of deliver the course, but like after that they don't pay attention to the person, or the ones that just pay attention to the people who have been paying right then and then
Right, right,
but if
right.
you like interact or engage, it's almost like you don't exist unless you're in that like moment right then. And I always think like, if that was in like the real world, which hey, we're business owners in the real world, that would never fly. Like if I treated my customers like you're only important to me if I'm getting paid by you right now, like I would miss out on a lot of business and I would not have very loyal clients. So I'd always be wondering if they were going to jump ship to my competitor who's also in there weekly and trying to get them to come over to the dark side. You know what I mean? And so it just never would fly. And so I feel like that energetic exchange still happens, like it
Yeah.
pays
My
off if you are, like staying open to the fact that, and treating the human and not the credit card, you know?
Right, right. No, absolutely. My question to you is, what if someone's picking your brain and you
Oh
need to set
no,
a
yeah.
boundary?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
that's kind of like, I feel totally what you're saying.
yeah.
And I think that sometimes what happens is, like, when, like, I'm very open and
Mhm.
very
Yeah.
friendly, and people are like, oh, I'm just going to ask you questions. I'm like, yes, and here is an offer that I have that I can help
Yeah.
you with. Like, I think that I just wanted to kind of differentiate that
Mhm.
nuance there, because I think that that's important too, to
Yeah.
like have boundaries so that you have standards, you have boundaries in your business, so that you're not, because again, that can be an energy leak of like,
Oh,
oh yeah,
totally.
let me help everybody, because like I'm talking to myself really
Yeah.
with
I'm writing a
that.
note. I'm like, oh,
So
that's great content. Yeah. So the way I would do it is, and I feel like this is a good podcast to do. Like y- I would treat it like a sales conversation and be like, okay, tell me a little more about this. What's
right,
going
right.
on? And then, like you said, there's like an opportunity to get them a, better value for their time. Um, Also, sometimes I'm like, hey, listen, that's a great question. And I'll create a podcast episode out of it. Or, I'm going
Right.
to go live about it and I'll tag you in it. And then you can get the answer, but then I can share it with the rest of the world too. Like that kind of thing. Um, but
Yeah.
like, no, what I was talking about is like,
I got what you
yeah,
were saying. I just
yeah,
wanted to go into the nuance
yeah,
of that, because I
yeah,
was like, yeah, I think that
there
that's
is
important.
that.
But I
Yeah.
know, I totally get it. Like, oh, if you're paying me, then you're like important. But then if like, but yeah, I've had that a lot too. And that
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong or bad. Every coach is different, but like, yeah, they don't check in. And I like, we talked about the long game. Like it really is, business comes down to
it
relationships.
does.
So like
Yeah.
checking in on people, saying how there was even somebody the other day. I was like, hey, I was just on a podcast. I'd love, you should be on this podcast because it was about like
Yeah.
caregivers, and that's what she like, again, like pairing people. And I'm like, this
Yeah.
girl's never even paid me a dime. Like she's never paid. And that's
Yeah.
okay. But
Yeah.
again, it's that wealth circulation of like, hey, I see an opportunity here.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah.
100%.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. No, like I've been a part of group coaching programs with people. And then like you comment on something like on an Insta story and they're in their DMs all the time, but they just leave it like unread for weeks. And you're like, huh? Like, am I only important if I'm in like a paying program to, you know what I mean? Or there
Yeah.
was one where it was like I got asked midway through the month if I wanted to renew for the next month. And I was like, I'm not even done like this month yet. Like we're just like not even halfway through. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's a little premature to be going around to everybody being like, okay, are you going to pay me again in January? And I was like, okay, this is not what I really signed up for. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's funny. People like that's where I feel like my genius comes in because I'm like, there's so many people who have made fast money or who have become successful really quickly, but like the client experience part really sucks. Or like the whole, like being able to retain clients or, like have people who want to stay in your world. Like to me, that's wealth right there,
Yes.
like that's a wealth of time. Like it takes this was back 20 years ago. There's like a statistic that was done where it was like, it takes 5 times as much time and money, I guess, to sign a new client as it does to get your existing client to keep
Right.
buying from you,
Right.
you know? And it's like,
Well,
dude,
and so so I always go with like frequencies and what I'm feeling. So what you're
yeah,
talking about is love. Like when you
yeah,
pour love into people, you show that you care, and it's not just about the here and now. It's like that long-term relationship. This is such a great
yeah.
conversation. You're like really inspiring me. I'm gonna go like DM all my past people now, but um yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to hear that. Well, cool. So is there anything else like you'd like to add as far as like when let's bring it down to like high ticket sales and bringing in this will be like the last topic for this because it's we've done so
Yeah.
many great topics in this episode. It's like chock full. Um, but like for people who have traditionally sold more lower ticket offers, where do you think the best place to focus is for transitioning into um like higher ticket, longer term, like masterminds and like 3-month programs, multiple
Yeah.
thousands of dollars, 4 figures, 5 figures, like that's the type of people that I serve and who the
Yeah.
podcast serves especially. Not to like shit on like low ticket offers, but let's face it, like we want to do things like the easiest way possible here. And so like I
Right.
know
Yeah.
my monthly recurring revenue always went up when I was focusing on like the bigger products that had more of like a, like the continuity to them.
Yeah. So what I would say is that you can always up level some of those people, right? Like
Mhm.
keeping them in your world, inviting them, like if it's a client converting workshop, right? That you're
Mhm.
now selling this higher ticket program. I think that that's a good way to just like, hey, like you said, invite people from your world already. I always think about like the ripple effects of like in your messaging as far as like actually curating an offer or thinking about that client experience. Like they're doing a one-time maybe big investment or over several months, but
Mhm.
what are the ripple effects of how this is going to affect their business for the long haul? So I think
Right.
that's where that value comes in. And I learned this from one of my earlier mentors. I think that if someone is going to invest like 20K or whatever that is in a program, I think that they need to know the things that you're learning now, you're going to keep repeating, and you can use, in different ways, you can pivot. And I think that once you have kind of those things, like as an example, how to write like a client offer,
Mhm.
you can use that for the lifetime of your
Yeah.
business. So I think it's really owning that as well as like the bigger transformation. So if take this program, yes, it's going to help you make money, but how are you going to be showing up differently? How are you going to be, again, becoming more of who you've always been? I think that,
Yeah, that's what I was getting. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it's that energy, it's the embodiment too of like rising up as a leader, making a bigger impact. So I
Right.
think it's like that's kind of what I'm feeling from that question.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like an exponential like increase in like your wealth or in earning potential and also like how you're going to show up in life in all different areas, right?
Right, right,
Relationships or with your kids or how much are you going to say yes to yourself or travel, do the things that you wouldn't normally do because of XYZ like outside circumstance when like truly when you realize you're guiding the ship through your circumstances, and it's like, I mean, there's a St. Petersburg boat show this past weekend, and we were on like the most gorgeous, like little, it's a baby yacht, but it was like 80 feet long, right? My husband used to work on super yachts. So he worked on one that
oh
was like
wow.
as long as a football field, like no shit. It was like as long as a football field. And but this one, it was so beautiful. And like, but you could buy that beautiful yacht and you could drive it all the way over to Gibraltar, right? Like right where Spain is. And you're not gonna have like no rough seas at all. You know what I mean? And so I feel like it's such a great, but you're gonna become like a better person along the way, right? Like
Right,
you
right.
can't expect any kind of bumps in the road, but it doesn't change the fact that you can still get to that, you know what I mean? With the right crew, with the right boat, with the right things. I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you were saying that, I was thinking about I put on a big healers and healthcare conference last year, and that was like really stretching my comfort zone because I had told you I usually did like smaller retreats where there was like maybe
Mhm.
20 people, and they were out of state because I'm in Pittsburgh, and I actually did them over by you in
Yeah.
Clearwater, and they were so much fun. They were so transformative, and I knew that kind of intuitively the next layer of this was to build like an actual conference. So I invested $40,000 in this conference, and I had all these different, support staff, and I had like a video made, and um just like, more people were there, and then I had a virtual option. And like you said, I guess I think of that, I'm thinking of that boat ride, right? So like that
Yeah.
was my destination,
Yeah.
and it was scary, and there were bumps along the road, but I
Yeah.
did it. And who did I become along the way as a result of some of the challenges and the things, the empowering lessons that I took away from it? I think that's, again, it really comes back to the evolution of who we are and
Mhm.
how we're showing up in the world, and that brilliance that we're here to shine.
Yeah. The
So
brilliance. I love it.
yeah.
Well, Christina, tell everybody where they can find you and follow you and hear and get healed by you and all the things.
I'm not the real healer. It's coming. I'm a
Yeah.
conduit of healing, but so I am on Instagram at the pharmacist coach. You can just find me on any social media platform under Christina Fontana. I'm on YouTube. I have my own podcast. It's called She Rises into Desire. I mean, if you Google Christina Fontana, I'm sure you'll pull up your beautiful face along with many other podcasts I've been on. So yeah, let's connect. And
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful, Cassie. Thank you so much for having me on. This was just fun conversation, and I hope that your audience just got so much value from it.
I know they did. This is good. Yeah, because like go take action with what you learned right now because otherwise it's just, you're not you're your potential is just sitting there being waited to to be used. Waiting
Right.
to be used, I mean. I think I need some more green tea this morning. But, anyway, oh, well, thank you, Christina. I appreciate you, and thanks for sharing everything. These are amazing conversations, and y'all go find Christina, follow her, and get in her world, and I will see you all next week for the next episode. Bye.